Allow me first of all to thank the Honourable Minister Jason Kenney for inviting us to Ottawa for the second annual conference of the ICCA. His outstanding efforts in supporting the coalition on anti-Semitism should be applauded as an example of political and moral integrity. Representatives of parliaments, governments, experts and scholars, we are gathered here today, all concerned by the expanding anti-Semitism. This awful form of ethnic and religious hatred is an undeniable threat for democratic societies throughout the world, and this threat is more sophisticated, more dangerous and more destructive today than in the past. The technological progress has made it easier for the anti-Semitism to spread and to reach different layers of the society. The electronic and printed media have become powerful tools of the propaganda of hate in many places of the world. The last 15 years have witnessed a dramatic rise in the use of Internet as a common space for spreading hate, anti-Semitism and racism. Anti-Semitic behavior and propaganda are gaining place in colleges and universities, using different ways to intimidate Jewish students and to marginalize pro-Israeli scholars. Anti-Israel and anti-Semitic speech is often being spread under the umbrella of the right of expression. The promotion of hatred has not only globalized, it has become many-sided. Politically, it encourages the denial of the Holocaust, because forgetting the past is the most secure way to repeat it. The rise of wild nationalism in many countries goes hand by hand with the expansion of xenophobia, racism and anti-Semitism. The religious hate speech tries to portray the other as a treacherous enemy whose only existence is the single reason for their wrongdoings all over the world. In cultural aspect, the vilification goes to the promotion of negative stereotypes of Israel, the Jews, and the Judaism in the media, literature, and cinema. State-sanctioned incitement to hate is undoubtedly one of the most dangerous ways of promoting anti-Semitism. It involves powerful machinery that is difficult to confront. Its main target is not so much the individual, but the community as a whole. Denial of the right of Israel to exist is a very specific characteristic of the state-sponsored anti-Semitism, openly based on grounds that pretend to be religion and history related, or covered as a criticism toward the Israeli foreign policy, especially in the Middle East. It goes far beyond that and uses every opportunity to call for the destruction of Israel. Thus, we are faced with a situation when the very existence of a state established by the UN is being openly challenged by political and religious leaders. How should we confront all that? I would like to stress some very brief points. On the international arena, we have to stand against any attempt to promote a state-sponsored policy of hate, xenophobia, racism and anti-Semitism. We should stand against any selective use of the international legal instruments by countries that are well known to be champions of human rights violation. On domestic level, it's very important to encourage and develop multiculturalism, and here the model of Canada should be applauded. To encourage ethnic and religious tolerance. Bulgaria traditionally has not been and is not a scene of anti-Semitic incidents. Nevertheless, the Bulgarian government shares the concerns about the rise of anti-Semitism globally. We believe that Jewish communities, wherever they are, should be able to live free from fear of verbal or physical attack. The governments have a shared responsibility to tackle anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism and prejudice, not only with those communities directly affected, but with all members of society. We are specifically concerned about significant indications that, unlike other forms of racism, anti-Semitism is being accepted within parts of society instead of being condemned. We also are aware that current rhetoric about Israel and Zionism employs anti-Semitic motives that are consistent with ancient forms of hatred toward Jews. We have a solid legal framework for protecting people from discrimination or persecution on the basis of race or faith, and this has been significantly tightened in recent years. It includes, amongst other, penalties for criminal offenses such as incitement to racial hatred, racially or religiously aggravated assault, and criminal damage. A state of long history, Bulgaria has enduring traditions of ethnic and religious tolerance. It is one of the two countries in Europe that did not allow the Holocaust on their territory during the Second World War. The dignified and human treatment of the Bulgarian Jews by the Bulgarian nation is our contribution to the human history. The Bulgarian people resolutely opposed the restrictive and coercive provisions affecting the Jewish population in the country introduced by the law on the defense of the nation that has been adopted by Bulgarian authorities during the Second World War. Let me recall that when the Commissariat for Jewish Affairs drafted an agreement on the deportation of 20,000 people on February 43, on the night of March 10, 1943, before the Parliament was due to pass a formal resolution, the Jews detained for deportation were released. A week later, 43 members of the Parliament, led by the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Dimitar Tzantchev, who is now recognized as a justice amongst the nations, tabled a declaration on protection of Bulgarian Jews. Nationwide protests ensued. These protests included politicians, intellectuals, leaders of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, adherents to various political parties, guided by the highly human cause of saving several dozen thousands of their Jewish fellows within the territory of the Kingdom of Bulgaria. Here I would like to stress the importance of the civil society action. In tackling anti-Semitism, we need to learn from the past. To this end, the government is committed to honoring the Holocaust and reflecting on lessons for today's generation. The events related to the Holocaust are studied at Bulgarian schools according to the state educational requirements for learning, content by subject, and in civic education in conformity with the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 67, which was co-sponsored by Bulgaria. Since 2003, the date on which the Bulgarian Jews were rescued from death is being marked in Bulgaria as a day of the Holocaust and the rescue of the Bulgarian Jews. Every year on this day, the Holocaust is remembered at Bulgarian schools and various observances take place. Besides that, Bulgaria marks the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, 27th of January. We share the conviction of all participants in this important conference that keeping the memory of the generations alive depends on our concerted efforts. We see our common task is to educate children and young people all over the world in the spirit of democracy and humanitarian values so that the drama of the Holocaust would be never again repeated. Thank you.